Okay, here's video number 2. This is part 2 to my kind of report on my experience and the things that I took away from the Plant Based Utah Symposium of 2019. So welcome back. I hope you enjoyed that first video. I would love to hear from you guys if you had any thoughts, any aha moments along with those things that I shared with you. Feel free to send me a message or drop a comment on this video. So I'm going to dive into there were 2 talks given by Dr. Zach Bush. Now, he blew my mind. He went way bigger and broader than I expected at this event. And honestly, I really appreciated it. It was beautiful. The talks that he gave were very impactful, and there were moments of reverence that were almost tangible as he was speaking, because he really does take a big picture, holistic view of plant-based nutrition, and he specializes especially in gut health, particularly understanding the microbiome that makes up our gut health and the interaction that that has with our environment and all sorts of things, okay? So if you have never heard of Dr. Zach Bush, I would encourage you to look him up. His website is Zach Bush, ZachBushMD.com. So you can learn more about him. He has 3, I can't think of the words. He is board certified in 3 areas in medicine. I can't remember what they are right now, so go ahead and look him up, but you can tell that he really does have this wealth of knowledge in the medical and scientific space, okay? So there's absolutely no way that I can do justice to summarize what he shared, but there were a few key points that I really wanted to pass along for those of you that weren't able to attend the symposium. Again, if you live in the area, if you're in the Utah area, I would highly encourage you to go to plantbasedutah.org to check out this nonprofit organization that advocates a whole food plant-based lifestyle, and they, of course, were the sponsors of this plant-based symposium, and they do it every year. This year was the 3rd annual symposium, and they will do these every year in the fall. So get on their list, stay tuned of when that next event will be, and I would love to see you there. All right, so we're going to dive into Dr. Zach Bush. Now, I had heard that Roundup is bad, okay? That it, ever since 1996, our food producers have been using Roundup a lot, okay? In fact, to the point that it has now permeated our food supply, our water, and our air up to 70%. Okay, that's pretty staggering. That was a number that Dr. Bush shared with us. And he shared some maps with us that you can, in fact, you can see where Roundup has really been heavily used on a map of the United States. And of course, it's in the bread baskets. It's in that food production part of our country. And so this map shows traces of this and how it filters down I'm going to get this wrong, guys. I think it's the Missouri River. It could be the Mississippi. Don't quote me on that. But basically, he calls that last... not he calls it, but it is known as Cancer Alley, that last 100 miles leading to the ocean there outside of Louisiana. And of course, those of you that have studied the environmental impact of our food know that there is an ocean dead zone that is growing right there in our own backyard. And you know, most people, like Keegan, who also spoke, he kind of points to animal agriculture and animal waste that is totally untreated and unmanaged. It literally just goes into the runoff of our water system and dumps right into the ocean. He kind of cites that as a cause of this ocean dead zone. Zach Bush kind of added a layer of perspective there that perhaps that is also caused by this runoff from our agriculture of using Roundup, okay? So it was pretty, honestly, it was a little terrifying, okay, of how pervasive this chemical is in our environment. And the reason that this is a problem is that Roundup kills everything, okay? It kills our microbiome. It disrupts our microbiome, which is the gut flora. It's that bacteria, if you've heard of the good bacteria that live in your digestive system, that helps us and even does the job for us, some would say, of breaking down our food. And that if we don't take good care of those little guys in our gut, they stop taking care of us, right? And that's where we get a lot of the health problems that we're running into, as Zach Bush really pointed out. Okay, so he really pointed out that connection that we need to be aware of. He did share that, let's see, I'm looking over, so he gave 2 talks, so I'm back and forth between both pages of my notes here. Okay, basically the takeaway here is that we need, this is a holistic solution, right? That not only do we need to be thinking about our personal nutrition and our gut biome, we need to be thinking about the environment that our food is being grown in. And he really points to the soil, that a healthy soil that is alive and that is full of nutrients and full of this actual bacteria that we then want to be present in our food and then be present in our digestive systems, that is being under attack ever since 1996 because the Roundup really sterilizes the soil on that microbiotic level, okay? Again, there's no way I can touch the amount of microbiology that Zach Bush got into in this talk. It was staggering, you guys. But my takeaway was, number one, I need to definitely be looking into organic options for my wheat and for any grain and legumes. He was saying that most grains and legumes that are produced in our country, if not around the world, are basically being bathed in Roundup 3 days prior to harvest. Okay, so that got my attention. I'm starting to look for more options of making sure that I'm getting organic versions that are not laced with this powerful chemical. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, my friends that came to this, I think Roundup's, the main active chemical in there is called glyphosate, and it is hugely problematic for the microbiome. Now, the hope of all of this is that we can keep our microbiome built up. There is actually a product that Dr. Bush created that he sells. It's called Ion Biome, I believe. And my husband and I are actually going to try it out and see if we see some improvements in our health. But he talks about how if we can, let me back up a little bit. So he talked about probiotics, right? We know that it is important now to have a healthy gut flora. And so a lot of us have turned to try to find the best probiotics that we can. Now, the name of the game with healthy soil, healthy ecosystems in nature, as well as a healthy ecosystem in our gut, is diversity. And I mean, he's thrown out amazing numbers, like million, billion, trillions of these individual bacteria that can live in our gut, and that is healthy, that needs to be there. But that it's not only the amount, but it's the diversity, okay? And what happens when you purchase even the best probiotic on the market? He was showing us studies that they've put about using probiotics, and I wish I could communicate this better for you guys, but basically probiotics really ramp up maybe, a handful of species of our microbiome, whereas we need a wide variety. So that's what his product does. He actually has some sort of like ancient soil that they were able to tap and use to replenish and rebuild people's gut biome. So again, this is something I'm just looking into, but I'm just passing the information along to you guys. It's really interesting stuff. So I am now completely over the idea of probiotics, you guys. I am just like throwing that out as a good option, honestly. So I'm looking at other ways to build up my microbiome. Now, many of you have gotten into fermented foods, right? That is a great way to get a large variety of gut flora, of healthy bacteria, and introduce that into your system. In fact, he closed his second talk with just kind of a list of things to do to really build up your microbiome and protect your microbiome. Number one, he suggested that we interact more with nature. Get out of the house, go get out there in nature, breathe in the air, go get in your garden, go dig in the dirt, play outside, be outside. The microbiome in our systems it moves through water, it moves through air. So taking deep breaths outside is really healthy for your gut microbiome. And then he also talked about human touch, of how skin to skin contact, shaking a hand or giving a hug, that those things it's a way for us to basically share this biodiversity of our individual microbiome with each other and to gift that diversity to each other. So he was a big hugger, and people that hugged him will tell you that he was a lingerer, but I think this is why. It's not like in a weird way. It's just like he understands that this is actually really healthy to have that connection. And there was, like I said, a really reverent moment in the talk where he talked about how human connection is so crucial to our species survival, and how we really need to pay more attention to that than ever before. So he talked about, hugs and skin-to-skin contact, like a handshake, that we look for ways to connect more. Now, I'm going to take a little side note here. He had a really powerful moment when he was talking about connection versus isolation. He was, like I said, he took this to a whole new level. It was very big picture. And he kind of called us out for any of us that identify as vegans. And some of you might not like this, and I'm sure some people in the audience did not like this either. But that when we take on that label, it is unfortunate that word carries a lot of stuff with it. And it's a very, it's like putting up a wall, really. It can be very isolating. It can be disconnecting rather than a inviting, connecting thing to share with people, right? So he really kind of called us out and said, do not call yourself vegans. And he kind of was jokingly saying, do horses say, hey, are you vegan? No, like, they're horses. They just eat a normal diet for a horse, and they don't make a big deal about it. So, take that for what it's worth, but I think there was something there, if nothing else, just to be able to kind of put on a different mindset a little bit when we share our ideas about optimal nutrition for humans and maybe your own food choices, of doing that in a way that creates more connection and less disconnect and less isolation. That can be really powerful. That, and I talk about this in my coaching all the time, that, I don't care if you're 100%, really I don't. I want to teach you the correct principles, and then I want to watch you and help you like move in the right direction. But we have to just start where we are and take the next step, right? We're all on a journey. And so anyone taking steps to be more intentional about eating more healthy foods, it's like, let's celebrate that, and let's honor that in each other, and let's not split hairs over, well, it's not enough that you're just vegetarian, like you're still having dairy. That's not good enough. You've got to move to the full vegan approach. He really called us out on that. So take that for what it's worth. Okay, I want to move to even more of the environmental stuff, and I'll kind of weave in a little bit of what Keegan Khuns shared. I have seen the film Cowspiracy, and I've seen the film What the Health. And so a lot of the things that he shared were actually graphics straight out of the film of Cowspiracy. So a lot of these things were like, yeah, I've seen this before. I know this. Like, I'm very aware of this. But I will tell you, there was a moment that he kind of built up to the fact that most of our planet's farmable land is being used right now. And it's being used for animal agriculture. It's either grazing or feeding these animals, or it is raising crops like soybean and corn and hay to feed the animals. So that he really painted the picture beautifully, that that's a problem on a planet where we have this much population and this much hunger and this much death from starvation. And again, I don't have exact numbers for you, but it was really compelling, especially when he got to the point that there was a graphic, and it was straight out of Cowspiracy, and I remember seeing it, but it just struck me with such gravity this time. And it was a picture of one little human and one little like plot of land, that this, let's say this represents the amount of land that it takes to feed someone that eats a plant-based diet. Now, if that person were to choose to eat dairy, I believe it was 2 to 3 times the amount of land. And it's like, okay, so, I mean, yeah, that's not great, but okay. And then he goes on, the next number, the next graphic shows a person that represents someone that eats all the things, right? Omnivorous, meat, dairy, fruits, vegetables, the whole enchilada. And that takes 16 times the amount of land that it takes to feed someone that is only eating plants. And, the camera zooms out and the graphic gets huge. 16 times. 16 times the amount of land to feed the same amount of humans. Okay, but 16 times the amount of land to produce their food. And that, oh my goodness, like that almost brought me to tears. And I grew up hunting and fishing, guys. I am not like your tree-hugging hippie, but man, I'm starting to become one, because it's just amazing when you choose to really pay attention to these numbers and to realize the effect that your choices really do have on our planet, and how that affects the rest of the human beings on this planet that are starving to death, okay? So maybe you're already privy to those things, maybe you're not, but I highly encourage you to watch both What the Health and Cowspiracy if you've not seen those films, especially Cowspiracy. If you got into healthy eating and whole food plant-based nutrition because of your health, and you haven't really explored the environmental impact of food choices, I highly encourage you to look at Cowspiracy, because it really does paint that picture really, really well. So I think that was like the biggest thing that I got from, that was the biggest impact to me from Keegan Khuns. He had time to take questions after his talk, and there were definitely some questions of, okay, how can we make a difference? How can we help others see maybe that impact, or help them make changes in the direction of more plant-based eating, so that we can make a difference for these numbers with our planet. And I, the health coach in me, the behavior change cheerleader over here, I loved his answer. He said, meet people where they are. And he said, if that means that you use some transitional foods that are like, the Impossible Burger or whatever, like there are some foods out there, plant-based cheeses, those sorts of things. If they need to use those foods, then like don't shame them for that. Like let them move through this process. But to meet people where they are, and to help them just like move the needle to more plants and less animals, was really his invitation. And I just love that sentiment. I really do believe that that's the only way that we can help people make changes, is when the changes feel doable and when they're given permission to take things at their own pace. Humans hate to be told what to do. We're just wired that way. We know that we were sent on this planet and that we were given freedom of choice and freedom of agency and freedom of will. And the minute we try to take that away from each other, I think it it rubs wrong at something deep within us, and we know that it's wrong, and so we push back, even if the thing that we're being told to do is a really good idea. So in your sharing, I hope you'll take that to heart, that the more we can meet people where they're at, the better. I think Keegan Kuhn was right on the money with that. Okay, my friends, I think those were the main highlights that I wanted to share with you. Let me look over one more minute. With Zach Bush, again, his tips for building up the microbiome were interact in nature, take deep breaths outside, hug people, connect with people, and definitely look for some organic options of your grains and your legumes. Pay attention to the dirty dozen, okay, of your fruits and vegetables, and try to buy organic for those ones that are high on the dirty dozen list. And then we can help build up our microbiome by consuming those fermented foods. Now, this was really interesting. He said the best fermented food goes in this order. Number 1 best choice is miso. Number 2 choice is kimchi. And the number 3rd choice, and then there was a whole lot underneath, was sauerkraut. Okay, so I went and got me some miso soup from the grocery store today, because this is something that I do think that if we kind of get the building blocks there more, then we can handle the fuel of our high fiber, whole food, plant-based diet, right? If you have started eating this way and it's not agreeing with you, it could very well be because you do not have the microbiome to handle all the fiber and to handle all of those wholesome foods. So definitely getting some fermented foods into your diet can help. Take a look at miso, take a look at kimchi, take a look at sauerkraut. Those are all great, but they were exponentially better starting with miso, then kimchi, then sauerkraut. The reason for this, I will share with you, was very compelling, because I'm going to get these dates wrong, the amounts wrong, but miso, it's fermented soybeans, right? And it's turned into a paste, but it is fermented for years, okay? Years. And whereas kimchi is, again, I wish I had written down the numbers. Maybe we can Google it. Maybe we can look it up. But the longer this type of food is fermented, the more times that the bacteria is actually separating and reproducing, and it's creating new strains. Okay, so it's creating more biodiversity within this fermented food with the types of foods that are meant to be fermented for longer, okay? So take a look at those, maybe do some more research. I know I need to do more research on that. I think that's all I have for you today. I hope that you found this enjoyable. Surely you were interested in this if you stuck around for a whole 22 minutes to watch this. But feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. My email is hello@danielledinkelman.com. You can also reach me through my website, danielledinkelman.com. Yeah, so let me know what you thought. I'm going to post this on my YouTube channel for those of you that were interested, and I'm going to post this inside the Facebook group for our potluck group that we have here locally in Springville, Utah. And I'll probably post this on Utah County Vegans as well. But hey, feel free to share it if you have other people that were wanting to come to the symposium and didn't make it. I hope that these highlights will encourage you to come next year, because I guarantee you that I only scratched the surface of what I walked away with, but I just wanted to share those highlights with you. So take care of yourself, enjoy this beautiful life that we have, and go hug someone today.